victims of our own industrial success. In maintaining the energy supplies that fuel society, we burn 85 million barrels of oil and millions of tons of coal every day. And it is causing climate change. But can we find ways to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions? At the start of the year, Euronews began a journey to seek out solutions. Our first stop was in Trondheim, Norway. Erik Lindeberg is one of the pioneers of carbon capture and storage, a technique that removes CO2 from industrial emissions and stores them underground. Can carbon capture and storage solve global warming?
I think it can be the large solution for the next few hundred years, because everywhere where we use fossil fuels, nearly, we can take care of CO2 and dispose it. It means that we might have to change some industry, transport industry, we might have changed things we do today, but I think it's practically possible to take care of most of the CO2 from a technical and economical point of view.
In Wissington, UK, we spoke to an advocate of alternative fuels for transport. Jeremy Wards is an expert on biofuels, which many say are a clean alternative to fossil fuels.
We know that that world of 2050 won't simply have petrol and diesel on garage forecourts. We're likely to have very different energy supply systems to the transport. It'll probably be dominated by electricity in the cities in the world, and yet we'll know that in the rural areas we'll need liquid fuels to provide that transport.
Our third trip took us to Almeria in Spain, where Dr. Zaza Moya told us that the sun is ready to supply all the clean energy we need using solar concentration technology.
If we install solar thermal power plants in 1% of the current desert areas, we would produce enough electricity to supply 100% of the world energy demand, only with 1% of desert areas.
At the Forsmark nuclear power plant in Sweden, we explored the controversial subject of nuclear energy.
I believe personally that 40 years from now, nuclear power could provide 1/3 of the electricity production in the world. I would really hope that we can see nuclear power contribute to energy production in the world, and also that more countries will be able to benefit.
It was the thorny question of energy security that brought us to Oslo to talk to Professor Stein Tonnessen. He says that climate change and energy security are two parts of the same problem.
Climate change is a global problem, quintessentially global problem. It's something that concerns all of mankind. And this is also the case for energy security, I would argue, primarily for oil security, because oil is a global commodity. So in order to ensure the provision of oil, you have to have a functioning global market. Both are global, and climate change is about energy.
In Germany, we discovered a town that had taken its energy future into its own hands. Unterhaching financed and built its own geothermal power plant.
We have shown to a lot of people which are visiting us week by week that it's a running system, that you can run it constantly, that it saves a lot of CO2 emission. At least Unterhaching will save 30,000 tons a year. With that, what we have done is a huge amount. And again, if you want to offer your inhabitants a stable environment in energy supply, then choose geothermal energy wherever it's possible.
We next travelled to Cardiff to talk about cars and trucks. Paul Nieuwenhuis is an expert on sustainable transportation. What does he think will power our cars and trucks in the future?
The world is still too complex and too diverse to come with a single solution. Oil might be the ideal fuel if you're in the Middle East, in an oil-rich nation. But if you're in Iceland, for example, where you've got lots of geothermal and hydropower, electricity or hydrogen are much more logical solutions. If you're in Brazil, which is one of the few places where biofuels can really be made in a carbon-neutral way, then biofuel is the logical solution.
It was the subject of global warming that saw us returning to Oslo to talk to Dr. Paul Prestrud, an ecologist and expert on climate change. He said he thought the problem would be solved.
It's a question about how able we are to change attitudes and policies and our thinking. And I'm not underestimating that challenge. It's an enormous challenge. It's about our win over strong economic interests, power between nations, between regions, between private interests, etc. So it is an extremely complex political situation to change. But we have the tools, and we have the recipe, and we know what to do.
In Siena, Italy, we talked to Professor Enzo Tiezzi, a highly respected academic and the writer of a number of books. We asked him if our way of life is sustainable, and if not, how can we change?
We may have terrible wars, for instance, for water in the future, terrible wars because too many people in the planet, terrible wars for energy. But finally, I think that good things and beautiful things will have a possibility to win. In the past was important only growth, economics, social issues. Now we need ethic and aesthetics. We need beauty. We need common good. We need to be good and to be beautiful as much as possible.